New York's skyline glittered like 1,000 restless hearts as reporters crowded a candlelit studio in Lower Manhattan. Everyone expected a routine interview, a few polite answers about tour memories, maybe a tease about upcoming projects. Yet the room shifted the instant Min Yoongi, better known as Suga of BTS, stepped onto the set. His dark coat whispered across the floor, and the cameras caught it first, a small, unmistakable smile tugging at the corners of his lips. Why was he smiling like that? Was it relief, excitement, or a secret none of us had yet uncovered? The air tightened as journalists exchanged glances. Even the hum of city traffic outside seemed to pause, as though New York itself leaned closer to listen. Suga greeted the interviewer with a quiet bow, the faint smile still dancing. "It's good to be back," he said, his voice warm but laced with something electric, an undercurrent of anticipation. The host, visibly intrigued, leaned forward. "You look happy tonight," she ventured, eyes narrowing playfully. "Care to tell us why?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, Suga's gaze drifted to the studio lights as if he were searching for a melody hidden in their glow. The pause stretched long enough for the world to wonder, is there a new album? A solo project? A life-changing announcement? Army watching the live stream from Seoul to Sao Paulo flooded the chat with frantic questions. The sudden camera flash ignited the room, catching the sparkle in his eyes. "Maybe," Suga finally said, that single word carrying more weight than an entire press release. The host laughed, but the audience didn't. They were too busy replaying every syllable, hunting for clues. Was that maybe a promise? A confession? A hint at a long-whispered collaboration with an American legend? Theories erupted across social media in seconds. Suga engaged? Suga dropping surprise mixtape? Suga moving to New York? Each guess only deepened the mystery of that smile. Backstage, staff members whispered that Suga had arrived early and alone, humming to himself while the city's evening rain tapped against the windows. Could that private moment explain the serenity now gracing his face? Or was there someone, perhaps a familiar presence unseen, waiting in the wings? Whatever the truth, the night belonged to that quiet, breathtaking happiness. New York reporters found themselves leaning forward, not for an answer, but to bask in the rare sight of a man usually known for measured words and guarded expressions. And you, yes, you reading right now, what do you think lies behind that smile? Drop your theory in the comments, share this moment with a fellow army, and don't forget to hit subscribe. Because if tonight's energy is any sign, the story is only just beginning, and the next revelation might break before dawn. The night outside the studio had settled into a silvery hush, the kind New York only grants after a heavy rain. Neon signs bled their colors across the slick pavement as a handful of determined fans huddled near the exit, umbrellas tilted against the mist. They weren't sure what they were waiting for until a ripple of motion inside the lobby signaled that the interview was over. Phones lifted like a forest of antennae. The glass door opened, and there he was again, Min Yoongi, shoulders relaxed, that same enigmatic smile softening the harsh street light. A collective gasp fluttered through the crowd. He paused at the threshold as if savoring the charged silence before stepping into it. For a heartbeat, it felt like time folded inward. Reporters surged forward with cautious energy. "Suga, can you give us a hint about the smile tonight?" one called out, the words tumbling with the urgency of everyone's unspoken questions. He glanced toward the voice, eyes catching the glow of 1,000 tiny screens. "A hint," he repeated, almost to himself. Then, with a small shrug, he offered, "Sometimes happiness doesn't need a reason you can name." The line landed like a spark thrown into dry grass, cryptic, poetic, and impossibly tantalizing. Across the street, a taxi horn blared, snapping the crowd back to the present. Suga's manager gestured toward a waiting black SUV, but he didn't move right away. Instead, he turned toward the fans who had braved the wet night for a glimpse of him. The smile widened, warm enough to melt the chill. A young woman in the front held up a handmade sign, "Army loves you, Yoongi," letters smudged by rain. He noticed. He really noticed. Lifting a hand, he gave a small, deliberate wave that felt far more personal than a casual gesture should. The fans erupted, their cheers weaving with the hiss of tires on wet asphalt. Inside living rooms and cafes across the globe, livestream viewers gripped their screens. Chat feeds exploded. "Did you hear that? Happiness doesn't need a reason. What does it mean? New song lyric? Something's happening. I can feel it." The SUV door opened, but instead of ducking inside, Suga took a slow step toward the crowd. Gasps turned to silence. Even the rain seemed to pause. His voice, calm and unhurried, carried across the damp air. "Thank you for waiting in this weather," he said in careful English, his tone low and kind. "Please stay warm. Please stay safe. Those words might have been simple courtesy, yet they held a weight that lingered in the chest, a melody that didn't need music. And then, with one last glance that felt like a shared secret, he slipped into the car. The SUV pulled away, taillights glowing red against the rain-streaked street. But the night didn't end there. Not for the fans, not for the reporters, and certainly not for the millions who were now wide awake, hearts drumming with speculation. Was this just another quiet evening in Manhattan, or had we witnessed the prologue of something seismic? A surprise album? A hidden collaboration with an American icon glimpsed only by insiders? A personal milestone that Suga had chosen to savor privately while letting the world feel its echo. Back in the studio's empty hallway, a lone camera still blinked. Somewhere on a server, the interview was already being clipped, subtitled, and shared at lightning speed. Each frame of Suga's elusive smile would be dissected and magnified, each pause replayed until dawn, and as the city settled into the hush before midnight, one truth became impossible to ignore: that single, inexplicable smile had set a global fandom alight. Whatever it meant, it had already worked its quiet magic, turning an ordinary interview into a moment no one would soon forget. Inside a Brooklyn cafe that never closed, a pair of graduate students watched the feed between steaming cups of coffee. "It's got to be a new album," one insisted, fingers tapping anxiously against the table. "He wouldn't smile like that for no reason." Her friend shook his head, eyes still glued to the looping video. "No, it's something personal. Look at the way he looked past the camera, like he was thinking about someone." The debate mirrored a million others happening at the same moment, in kitchens, on subway platforms, in quiet bedrooms where fans sat cross-legged with headphones on, chasing a mystery they could feel more than name. Meanwhile, across the river in a hotel tucked discreetly near the High Line, the black SUV slipped into an underground entrance. Security lights flickered once, then steadied. Inside, Suga stepped from the vehicle and pushed back the hood of his dark coat. The quiet here was different, thick and intimate, carrying the scent of rain-washed stone. A staff member offered a towel and a polite bow. He smiled again, smaller now, but no less radiant. As he entered the elevator, a faint melody escaped him, a hum barely louder than the sigh of the closing doors. Was it a new hook? A fragment of a song destined to upend charts before anyone knew it existed? Or was it simply the tune of a man at ease with his own happiness? Upstairs, behind the privacy of a suite that overlooked the endless city lights, he set down his phone. Messages glowed across the screen: congratulations from fellow members, a quick "you killed it, Hyung," from J-Hope, a quiet string of heart emojis from RM. He smiled again, softer still, reading each word as if they were gentle notes in a song only family could write. The rain outside deepened to a steady hush. He crossed to the window and looked out at the skyline, 1,000 stories stacked in light and shadow. Somewhere below, a siren wailed; somewhere across oceans, millions waited for a sign. He could almost hear their anticipation, a living current humming through the city. But Suga simply watched, his reflection mingling with the city's glow. Perhaps the secret was not a hidden project or a headline-ready revelation. Perhaps the secret was the rare and simple joy of a quiet night in a city that expected noise. Still, questions swirled like the mist over the Hudson. Would he surprise the world before sunrise with a cryptic post? Drop an unannounced track that would wake every fan in an instant? Or would he let the suspense simmer, letting the world write its own lyrics around his smile? As the clock edged toward 1, a new notification lit his phone, a flood of comments on the interview stream, each one a spark of curiosity and affection. He scrolled slowly, reading messages in a dozen languages. "We love you, Yoongi. Are you happy? Tell us the secret."